We interrupt this record to bring you a special bulletin. The reports of a flying saucer hovering over the city have been confirmed.
Did you really go out with an alien? Uh-huh. What was it like? Real different.
Becoming Human, a Mork and Mindy podcast. Hello listeners, this is Paula Schaffner taking a look back at Season 2 of Mork and Mindy. This was of course a very different season from Season 1. Some of this was deliberate and some of it they seem to be fumbling their way through. I'll just start with talking about the 0 to 4 egg scale that I use to measure how well each episode delivers what I'm looking for in this series. Season 1 averaged out to 2.76. Season 2 averaged out to 2.5. It was a drop in quality, but not as dramatically as I expected. It's still above average. I should mention that there were a couple two-part episodes, and so when I did the overall average, I counted them double. There are some quite good episodes this season that I will be discussing, but we did hit some lows that we had not hit before. There were 2 episodes that got 1 1/4 eggs. They were not the only episodes where I got very ranty on Pod about things like plausibility and defensiveness and mischaracterization, particularly of the main characters. That seemed to happen more than in Season 1, but not every episode. The first season, I had 6 episodes that I gave 3.5 out of 4 eggs, so I had to narrow it down a bit for the top 5 episodes of the season, and so one of them ended up being honorable mention. One of the episodes this season got a 3.5, so it was up on a level with the best of the first season. Then there were 2 episodes that I gave 3 1/4. There was one I gave a 3.14, and then I had quite a few that were 3 eggs out of 4. They were good, solid, but flawed episodes. For the number 5 slot, I went with the one that I felt, even at the time, I may have slightly underestimated. It might be a 3.1, so that is my number 5. Episode 41, Mork Learns to See. As I said, this was an episode that stayed with me from the time. It really had an impact on me, despite the flaws of the episode and somewhat rushed nature of things. And that is something that we see a lot of in this season. There are times that they should have taken more than an episode to draw things out, to develop them, to not have quick wrap-ups, to not have so many rushed friendships. And admittedly, we saw some of that in Season 1, but it seemed to be more of a problem in this season. And so we have this reconciliation between Mr. Bickley and his son. But that said, I did feel like the character of Tom Bickley was one of the more memorable one-shot characters of the season. He has a disability. He's blind, but he has many sides to him. He has that difficult relationship with his father. He has his singing career. He has a sense of humor. He has hobbies. In some ways, I feel like I know him better than I know Nelson or the Da Vinci's, who I will talk about later. This episode touches on one of the themes of the series overall, certainly in this season, which is the parent-child relationship. And of course, we didn't have as much of Fred and Mindy, but that does appear a couple times in the season. In this case, we get that dynamic between the estranged father and son. And this is one of the episodes where it's basically about Mork and Mindy and 2 other people, and that is some of the strongest material when there are fewer distractions. You're just focusing on that dynamic between the 2 pairs and crossing over and so on. We have Mork learning lessons about life, and the music is nice. It's just generally a good episode, and it's a blend of drama and humor, and the tones are managed well. In the number 4 slot is episode 28, Dr. Morkenstein, which was one of the highlights of the first few episodes of this season. It has another memorable guest star, complicated in this case because we have Roddy McDowall providing the voice for Robbie the Robot playing Chuck. There's a surprising amount of emotion. We have the theme of friendship, and again, Mork makes friends very quickly, and then it's hard for him when he loses them, if he does. Again, blending sadness and hope and humor. Although it focuses on Mork and Chuck, we get to see how this affects Mindy. And then there's a tie, because I feel like there are two episodes that are not only equivalent in quality, but they are linked in different ways. One of them is a Morkville Horror, which is scary and touching and fun. It continues the theme about parenthood, but there's also some elements of dealing with the past and memories. It has both Exodore and Mr. Bickley, and we didn't really get enough of Mr. Bickley this season, so that was good. We have Mork offering support and comfort to Mindy. He's very sweet and tender with her as she deals with her memories of her mother. Then episode 39, A Mommy for Mindy, revisits some of these elements in a different way, where we get the much appreciated return of Fred. We have Conrad Janis doing very well with drama. We have the chemistry between him and Pam Dauber, still very believable as father and daughter, and then interacting with Robin Williams. Shelley Fabares does a nice guest shot as Fred's new wife. We have Mindy really struggling with her memories and the past. The episode still chokes me up. As with Morkville Horror, it addresses Mindy's continuing grief for her mother, and it's more central here for obvious reasons. So I think of those episodes in a way as a pair. And my favorite episode of the season is a two-parter. It is not the season opener. It is Mork versus the Necrotons. Some people will claim that this was a shark jump, but I just loved it. I found it utterly delightful. I still think the Anson Williams joke is one of the best ever. It's funny, it's topical, especially with pop culture and politics, and it's playing with the whole sci-fi genre. Raquel Welch is a very memorable guest star. I enjoy the costumes and the set design, and just the whole look and feel of it is great. It's another episode about the importance of friendship, and it's also one of the shippier episodes of the season. I rate each episode not only on an egg scale, but also a heart scale of 0 to 4. With my season 1 review, I wondered what would happen with the average on the hearts, because at that time it was 1.25. A lot of what happens in season 1 is not really about the Mork and Mindy relationship, or it can seem very platonic at times. In season 2, things get more complicated and ambiguous. It's not always clear when things are platonic. A lot of the episodes are about the Mork and Mindy relationship to some degree, even if another couple or entirely unromantic plot is going on. So it went from 1.25 to 1.5, which is still below average, but it shows that it's not fading away. It's not as much as I would like. I believe that season 3 it'll go up, but certainly season 4 things will change. I do have to say that there were times during this season when I did not want Mork, as he now is, to be involved with Mindy, either because of how he's treating her or just how he's acting in general, like in Clerical Error. That said, obviously there are episodes where he is very sweet with her. My season 1 review, I talked about how utterly sweet season 1 is, and I didn't get that feeling as much in season 2. It helped with the Georgia Engel cameos in a couple episodes, and there were some other moments that I thought were really just adorable and sweet and kind. There is, I wouldn't say nastier, but there is a meaner, more spiteful feeling to the show, including in Mork's characterization sometimes. Sometimes he's not so much innocent as ignorant or idiotic. That's unfortunate. Still have the theme of her helping him to become human, but it is morphing over time as he settles in. Although some of the lessons he learns in season 2, it feels like should have already come up in the past. There's definitely an attempt, particularly in the first half of the season, to sex things up, which works in the Necrotons episode, but doesn't as much in the one where Mork is a cheerleader, and there's some other moments where things get more sexual. It feels like there are more kinky lines from Mork. And sometimes it's just kind of benign, like he thinks a lot about her lingerie. But that changes the tone. They do somewhat retreat from that in the second half, and there's less of things like the bachelor party. And we get an episode that just is full on about kids and for kids, where Mork's daycare center group is introduced. I don't know that either aspect is necessarily right for the show. I feel like things were better balanced in season 1. You had Eugene for the kid point of view, but it didn't dominate. That brings us to the cast changes. The 2 Fred episodes aside, we're basically missing Mindy's father and certainly her grandmother. So instead we get her cousin Nelson. He is not a supportive relative. I don't know if he's just narcissistic or what, but he barely seems to acknowledge anything about Mindy's life or anyone's. It's all focused on this campaign that at the beginning is more than a year off. And so then we get quite a few episodes that are related, at least tangentially to that. Doesn't really help the show. Nelson as a character is kind of a doofus and kind of bland. He's not terrible. He doesn't ruin the show for me, but I don't know that he really adds anything. As you can see, other than his appearance in the Necrotons episode, where he's not bad, he's not around really in my favorite episodes of the season. The situation with the Da Vinci's is more complicated because there's 2 of them. We get the deli sort of replacing the music store. And so particularly early in the season, we get scenes set at the deli. Things will start out there, something will come up there. Generally, the deli humor isn't funny. It's just filler at best. With both Da Vinci's, I felt that there was inconsistent characterization. Remo is a simpler character, and it's basically a matter of how dumb is he this week. He's presented as an ordinary macho guy who runs a deli. There's not much more to him in most episodes. The Jeannie Loves Mork episode did help. We got to see a better side of him as a brother, because another thing with them is that they bicker as brother and sister, and that's not that funny either. The character of Jeannie is relatively developed. We know that in addition to working in her brother's deli, she is a med student. She is somewhat shy, has trouble meeting people, especially eligible men, and she seems to very quickly become Mindy's best female friend. All those friends of the first season are forgotten. I think that Gina Hecht and Pam Dauber have a nice rapport together. It's not really classic female friendship, but it's all right. Kind of like what that brings to the show. But that said, if the Da Vinci's disappeared, I wouldn't really miss them much, and I feel like even the things that happened to deli could happen elsewhere. And also we get a thing of the deli isn't doing too well financially, and then that's kind of dropped. And even the thing of, they finally had a plot that I thought was interesting relatively, where they're going to host a wedding. That was forgotten about in clerical error. With the music store, there was some stuff about them struggling, and they had that awful landlord and so on. But it felt different because this was Mindy's family business, and she worked there. The stakes felt higher. A music store is a more interesting setting to me. I feel like restaurant settings are kind of a dime a dozen unless it's done really well. One thing I talked about on the season 1 review was that I felt like, because this is to some degree the Mork show, even though Mindy is in the title, we didn't get to know a lot about her. This season, they at least gave us some episodes where we were reminded she's an aspiring journalist, she's gone back to college. We don't get a lot, but at least there's a feeling that she has a life other than Mork, and so I appreciated that. When she worked at the music store, that was nice, but I don't really know what she did there other than she was a clerk. And I still feel like they could have done more. They were struggling financially at one point in the season, and I was never clear what they were doing for money. We could get more with that. I already talked some about Mork's characterization this season, that has changed to match the fluctuating tone of the series. Sometimes he is just wonderful and funny and sweet and all the great things of season 1, and then sometimes it's just like, why does Mindy keep him around? I don't just mean the chaos, but like when he's actively cruel and finding it funny. And I feel like there was more of that. Other than, I think, Splinking in season 1, I never felt like he wanted to hurt Mindy. We got the episode where he picks a fight with her to make the relationship more exciting. It's like, the relationship was exciting enough. Thank you very much. One thing about the tasteless humor is a lot of it is just unfunny. Either jokes falling flat, sometimes I just didn't even get jokes, tasteless or not. I didn't get the references, and I felt like season 1 was more accessible. That may be just the way things go, like with the episode about Mork being addicted to commercials. Some of that just aged out of being gettable humor for me. Sometimes the construction of jokes doesn't work. That said, there are definitely episodes where they still bring it. They still have the energy, and I laughed, at least smiled. But yeah, there were some episodes where I ranted, and I don't remember doing that to that extent in season 1. But I also feel like because it's not a terrible season, the things that don't work really stand out. If it had jumped the shark, I think I would just feel more discouraged. One thing that I felt like we saw more of in this season than season 1 is more gender bending. And not just by Mork. Definitely Mork gets Mindy-itis and some other moments. But there are throwaway jokes. There's Mindy in a mustache and singing the song from Peter Pan. I thought that was interesting that that's going on, that seems to be consistent in the series. I still believe that Mork is bisexual. I mean, obviously, I mostly ship him with Mindy, but I can't deny that there are some very slashy moments with Remo and sometimes other men. And I've said in the past that I didn't really remember season 2 and season 3 distinctly from each other. Season 1 stands out because it's so funny and fresh and sweet. And season 4 stands out because that's the year that they got married and so much changed. And some people regard that as a shark jump, and we'll see what I think about that when we get there. One thing about this season is that we get very surreal and fantasy or sci-fi episodes, including the season opener. And then we get them tackling the tough issues like racism and nuclear power. And that is another way this season provides whiplash. I don't remember if that happens as much in season 3. It may have been a sign of them throwing anything against the wall and seeing what would stick because of the ratings decline. As you may recall, Mork and Mindy had actually tied with Happy Days for the number 3 slot, with Three's Company at number 2 and Laverne and Shirley at number 1 for the 78-79 season. For the 79-80 season, it placed 27, which is not terrible, but that is a big fall. Happy Days landed at 17. That was the year that Laverne and Shirley fell out of the top 30 because they moved it out of that Tuesday night slot for enough time to do some damage. Three's Company managed to hang on to number 2 with 60 Minutes at number 1. Mork and Mindy was not alone in having some rough times that season, but I think that all the changes did make things harder. So that's one thing we can look at when we get to season 3. Did they come back? Not just in the ratings, but back to the feel of season 1, or is season 3 like season 2? Or is it its own thing? Some of the things that I thought were going to happen this season, like Bill Kirchenbauer coming back, didn't happen yet, but I'm pretty sure that's season 3. We'll see how that all plays out, and I don't really have any predictions for what happens based on my memories and just my impressions. I do think that we get more of Fred and Kathy. And I think there's at least one episode with Cora, because I remember her getting mugged. But I don't think she becomes a regular again. We're roughly at the midpoint of the journey. Just want to thank you for listening, staying with us. There will be a hiatus. The season 3 podcasts will start at the beginning of 2024. Things go according to plan. In the meantime, this is Paula Schaffner signing off. Nanu, Nanu.
So take a special look and see, and just possibly you will see the love and beauty that's in you and me. That was for you, Dad.
How did you know I was here?
You're still wearing that awful smelling aftershave. I could find you when I was lost in a circus.
I don't want to see him spend his last few moments like this, please. Can we have a few moments, please?
Sure.
Chuck,
Present.
how are you feeling?
Afraid.
You're going to be all right after I finish doing this.
What? No, what are you doing? What?
I was just going to pull some of your circuits so you go back to the way you were, so you won't feel what you're feeling.
No. Leave me the way I am.
You've got to, Chuck. That way you won't feel the fear anymore.
I wanted to be human. Fear comes with the territory. I'll have the lasagna.
Yeah. It's my fault, Chuck. You're just a machine before I got a hold of you. I wanted to tend you back to the way you were.
Oh, then we couldn't have been close.
I remember my little daughter playing peekaboo behind this chair after she'd made that caterpillar out of the egg carton.
Mom?
And remember that time you put your daddy's underwear on the puppy?
Mom, is that you? Mom, are you all right?
Oh, yes, dear. I'm fine.
There's so many things I want to ask, but I don't know where to start.
It's all right, darling. But I don't have much time, and there's something that I need to tell you. Remember that old teddy bear that you loved so much, and you hugged it till it was smooth, and the stuffing was coming out, and the eyes were gone, but you still didn't want to give it up?
Yeah, but I don't understand what this has to do with...
Well, dear, you finally outgrew it. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with giving up things that you've outgrown. Goodbye, dear.
I'm waiting in Mommy's chair until they bring her back. Why don't you call the angels and tell them I'm hungry?
Sweetheart. I know this isn't easy, but you have to understand. Mommy isn't coming back. Oh, all right. I'll go fix you some waffles and some for Mr. One-Eye.
My mother. I want my mother. I want my mommy. I want my mommy. I want my mommy.
I want my mommy. I want my mommy. I want my mommy.
I mean, it's all right. It's all right. I'm here.
I guess we've had a full life. I only wish I'd gotten to meet Anson Williams.
Mark, there's something that I've been wanting to tell you for a long time, but I just couldn't.
Oh, what is it, Nand?
Well, one time when you weren't home, I put on your space suit.
The helmet, too?
Boots and all. Are you mad?
No. I have a confession to make to you, too. Well, one time when you weren't home, I held your blow dryer and jumped up and down on your bed. Are you mad?
No.
I guess we've done it all.